Hello, travelers. Boardman21 here, and today we have another tier list for you for all the new unique and set items that came in patch 8.4. And with me again will be Lizard IRL, who will be judging them and grading them just like we did last time.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone.
All right, Lizard, you ready to get into this and give all these uniques our rating?
Oh, I am ready, indeed. I am ready, indeed.
All right, first
Some
up.
interesting ones.
Yeah, first up, just for everyone to know, we'll have the database open so you can read what the affixes are. We'll then put them in the tier list where we rate them, and then of course you can see us below talking about it. All of these are on Last Epoch's Tools website, or Damit's website if you want, and you can find them all there if you want to follow along. So first off, we have the Stormhide Paws, which give a plus level to swipe. They give you a ton of flat added melee lightning damage with a 3-second cooldown. Increased lightning damage, increased cold damage, health, cold resist, and +1 to all attributes. Quite a few affixes on this pair of gloves. What do you think about them?
I mean, I think when you look at the gloves, they're not that great endgame. But if you manage to, hey, you're playing a Primalist, you drop them at level 6, you have them on your softcore characters, whatever you want to twink your character you're currently playing. This, just the cold resistance for the campaign, the HP, and the increased damage, it's actually pretty good for leveling, I think. Again, they're really situational because they're only basically good for swipe. But for that particular occasion, I think they're pretty good at leveling. I would say they're S leveling for swipe.
I would also agree. I haven't used them in the end game, especially since there's a 3-second cooldown on that lightning damage. But the fact that you can put them on at level 6, if you already have this pair of gloves and plan on leveling a Beastmaster or just a Primalist in general, they are very powerful gloves to put on at level 6. And they'll take you through the campaign nice and easy.
I completely agree. I wouldn't consider them for endgame just for the, just for that cooldown. That I think that just makes it not endgame viable.
And while I agree that there should be some uniques that are meant just for leveling and not all uniques should be used for endgame, if you wanted this to be used for endgame, or if they could do an endgame version of it, say kind of like they do with the Claw and the Fang, what do you think is one of the affixes they would need to bump up to make it, endgame viable?
I mean, obviously you would want a good base, considering it's a Crusader. Primalist item, Crusader gauntlets would be really nice, so you could actually benefit from the implicit of the item. I think if they just basically removed the cooldown, or since it has lightning and cold damage, maybe it could be interesting if it had 30 melee lightning damage, and when that's on cooldown, you do cold damage or something, so a bit of kind of like, one of your swipes is lightning, the next one is cold for like a dual element thing, and you could benefit from crystal swords or something like that. And obviously you would want more HP also, if since losing your hybrid HP roll on gloves is also kind of hurts. But something like that would be cool, I think, in the future, and maybe even more plus to swipe, maybe +2, +3.
Oh yeah, I agree. Even just getting rid of that cooldown so you can get that melee damage on every hit would definitely bring it up to an endgame level, because it is a pair of gloves, and getting that much flat damage instead of waiting every 3 seconds, getting that with every swipe would be very, very powerful.
Agree.
All right, Salt the Wound. For this one, you get increased critical chance by the implicit with some added armor, but you get critical strike multiplier, increased damage over time, physical resist, poison resist, and you get the nice new mechanic of getting a percentage of added critical strike multiplier converted to bleed and poison effectiveness.
Okay, this item is, I think it's really good. I think it's definitely an S endgame item to begin with. I think there was a lot of hype when this item came into the preview, right? And we saw it on the patch notes, and it got teased. Everyone thought, "Oh my god, these gloves are gonna be crazy." But I think it kind of like got a bit overshadowed with the current meta right now. A lot of people are playing Void Knight Auto Bomber, a lot of Static Orb, and dots kind of like not as prominent as people were thought, right? Because some of the other things that got introduced. I think getting that crit multiplier, because it doesn't take the base and it doesn't take the specific crit multipliers, it only takes the generic one. They're kind of like harder to use than I initially thought. And again, I think if you're using them for a poison build, for a bleed build, and these are basically very good DPS gloves. They're kind of hard to roll a good one, but if you roll a good one where you max roll everything, right? You get the crit multi, you get the good resistances, especially now that poison is dangerous. They're actually pretty good gloves. Definitely S for me.
I agree. I could put him in S in Endgame. I fell in the same boat. I was super hyped about these gloves. I read a couple of things in the alt text wrong about them. When I first found a pair, got excited, found out the base 200% crit multi actually didn't affect anything, and therefore it killed a bunch of builds that I had planned with it. So, I tried a few different builds with it. There was only a couple. Basically, rogue builds were the only thing that really stuck out that did well with them. Outside of rogue, found them almost completely useless, or just haven't found anything to use them on yet. But was really disappointed by how little it was actually really synergetic because of stacking crit multi outside of your base on a dot build it took too many affixes, too many slots, and outside of rogue it was really hard to do.
Yeah, the good thing about the rogue is that because you get so much crit multi for free, right? Then you don't really suffer, right, from using them. But it's kind of tricky too because the for damage over time builds, there's actually quite a few good options on gloves. These gloves are actually pretty hard to drop. They're pretty rare, and to drop a good one, it's even rarer, right? So it's definitely like a chase item for DPS. But you have things like wing guards, right? If you're stacking attack speed, where attack speed might be even a bigger multiplier for you in terms of damage than just like getting the crit multi effectiveness. I think they look sick. I think they're a great idea. I think if they made the 200 base crit multi have already an effect, then they would be way too powerful, right? Because it would be basically mandatory, and you don't really want to do that. So I think these gloves are on a really good place. They're strong, but I wouldn't mind if they buffed them a bit, or if dots in general got buffed, because that's the thing with dots, right? Some of the dot builds are a bit weird at the moment, so they might buff dots outside of the glove, and then that would indirectly make these gloves even better than what they are. But they're definitely a good pair of gloves, and not only they're good, but they're also interesting, which I like. Again, maybe it's also, I think with a lot of these items, because the patch, there was a lot of new items, a lot of new things to try in this patch. And again, we've been so overwhelmed with Chapter 9 mobs and some of the new difficulty of the game in the end game that I feel like there's a lot of items that, for example, I personally haven't even tried to min-max a build with these gloves yet. So again, maybe these gloves are better than what I think at the moment, just because I lack a bit of experience with them. But they're definitely on S, that's for sure.
Yep, I've seen a couple of builds that people have put out that definitely do some good damage with them. How much damage was added by these in particular, I'm not quite sure on those builds, but it could definitely use a buff, especially with dot builds. You have a lot less access to like leech and stuff, so your survivability is usually a bit more of an issue. Definitely could use a little bit of a boost of damage to offset that. But I do like the mechanic. Definitely new, definitely fun to get you theory crafting to work around. It's definitely a fun pair of gloves. And like I said, I tried it with a lot of different builds, but everything kept bringing me back to the rogue. Our next pair of gloves, we have the Whirl of Simon, which this is a pair of gloves that I found, but I have not used them yet. But these ones give you a void resist. So they have a very good base implicit. You get a % chance to cast Stationary Fire Tornado at a nearby enemy on a 3-second cooldown. They give you a chance to shred fire resistance each second with Tornado. They increase your fire damage, fire resist, and give you some increased armor. What do you think about them?
This is what I think about them. I think these gloves right now are not that useful. They're a good base. They have good, the increased armor is nice, the fire res is nice, increased damage is nice. But again, it's kind of weird because they're kind of meant for Primalist, right? And right now, Primalist doesn't really have that great support when it comes to fire, right? Other than using the Earthquake conversion, maybe. And it just, I don't know, they feel like maybe if in the future there's better things for Tornado, and you can, we know the new Swarm Blade form is going to be able to cast Tornado. Maybe you can end up having a bunch of Tornadoes, stack the fire threat, and then actually benefiting your auto attacks from it and using Tornado as a debuff or something, getting a bunch of movement speed and stuff with the Tornado itself. But for me right now, they're kind of A. They're kind of gimmicky. The tornado is kind of cool. It's a good base item with Crusader gauntlets. But I think this item is prepared for the Druid rework, and we could see this item going up in the next patch. Maybe. That's what I think.
Yep, I agree. Right now, I wouldn't use them on any of the builds I do unless you were playing around just for, to play for fun, a fire tornado build. But I've just never had that much luck with tornado, with doing damage and turning it into fire, not having any fire support outside of these gloves and just what's inside of the tree for fire tornado. There's really not too much you can do with it. Like, in any tornado build that I've used, I end up using tornado for just the mana regen, for the move speed, for its buffs, maybe cast some lightning because lightning is built into a bunch. But for fire, I wouldn't use this. And it's kind of impressive because you have a huge amount of fire shred with it, which is really nice. And you're like, oh, cool, now I can stack a fire attack. But then you're like, wow, the only thing I have is maybe Earthquake, which is very mana expensive or something. There's not a whole lot of synergies with it. But hopefully that could change in this next patch, and it could become pretty good, especially if Tornado sees any change to its tree, and perhaps you can build into fire a little better.
Yeah, a lot of us been wanting for more shaman fire support, right? Especially with the spirits of fire bosses, watching the boulder and all that. We're all kind of like waiting for that. The devs say that maybe fire is not something they want to necessarily see too much on Primalist, but we will see. We will see. This one is up there. Hopefully they bring something exciting next patch with the druid, with the new druid forms and stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. Me personally, I've asked for more fire inside of the shaman, but it is something they said they don't feel, fits their thematic. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It is so weird that they would say that, and then you get a unique pair of builds. It's supposed to be like a skill enabling unique, but we'll see.
We love you, 11-hour games. We love you.
All right, the Frostbite Shackles. They give you a chance to apply Frostbite on hit, increase Frostbite duration. They give you some freeze rate multiplier. You gain ward every time that you freeze an enemy, and you get 1% ward retention per 1% uncapped cold resist. What do you think about these?
Okay, this is what I think about this item. The first time I saw it, I was like, this is kind of gimmicky. Frostbite is not that great. Again, I didn't know that there was going to be a bunch of more Frostbite support this patch with things like the new idol grid that really benefits Frostbite effect with cold damage 1/3 idols, and the static orb would actually have some Frostbite support in it. And so at the beginning of the patch, when I saw these gloves, I didn't thought too much of it, and I completely kind of missed my favorite line in this item, which is 1% ward retention per 1% uncapped cold resistance. As a mage, you can get a lot of cold resistance for free with some of the passives, with teleport, etc. And with some good items here and there, it's very easy to get 150 cold res or something, 160. So I really like these gloves. I think you can make a competent Frostbite build. It's not going to be a top build or anything like that can compete with crit at the moment. Again, mainly because you want to kill enemies fast, and dots don't do that. And the reason you want to kill enemies fast is because enemies are fucking dangerous. So if you don't kill them, they kill you. So it's not necessarily that dots are bad. It's just that they're not good for the current needs of the game, where is kill enemies as fast as you can, otherwise you die. So again, a bit of a long explanation. I really like these gloves, but they have a pretty big downside for me. That is, the base item is just garbage. Like, why would you make an item that is so interesting, that is meant for endgame because it's level 74, and then you give it a base that has 36 armor? Because you could giving us, I don't know, like a special base with cast speed. You could give us a special base with ward retention, maybe. You could give us Crusader gauntlets with void resistance. I don't know, endurance, maybe. So they're decent gloves. I think they're viable in endgame. But I think they could be better very easily. So for me, it's going to be an S, but kind of barely. Endgame S, but they could be better really easily, in my opinion.
So for me, I put him in A, but I might be able to go up to S if if you talk me into it. But for me, what I found with them is when I first saw them, I said, "Wow, that's a lot of chance to apply frostbite." The increased duration means you can stack more of it at once, and the fact that every stack that you can have gives you a higher chance to freeze an enemy. I was thinking, wow, freeze builds might benefit very greatly from this. And then on a mage, you get all of that ward retention for basically free. I was like, wow, we'll be able to stack extra ward. You have extra defense. I thought it was going to be great. And since you're stacking all that freeze chance and you're actually freezing some enemies, you're getting even more ward on top of that. It seemed very synergetic, like all of it synergized together quite well. Then I went to use them first on my Spellblade with Shatter Strike, building into all of that frostbite. No, complete garbage. Got rid of that.
I think I think I was kind of like you in that boat until I was one day in Twitch and I saw Amarathi and he was making a build with them. And he was actually, instead of going for the frostbite and stuff, he was just building entirely for that ward retention line. And he was able to get massive ward retention, massive ward thanks to these gloves. And I thought, you know what? They might be better than what I thought. So, and they were definitely crucial to his build, and he was doing corruption easy and stuff. So, since, again, they could be A also, but just because they're actually usable and there's actually builds that use them, I'm going to say regular S for me. But yeah.
And that's where I was getting to is then I went to the mage and I used it for the ward retention, and it ended up actually really benefiting. So you have frostbite inside of static strike and ice barrage, which is what I ended up building it with. And I was still getting really good hit damage with the static orb, which was nice. That's where I got all my leech from. I was able to kill enemies decently quick, but against bosses, all of that frostbite and a little extra dot damage and all that ward retention meant that I got a lot higher ward. You had a chance to freeze, and they were usable in endgame. I don't know if they're the best pair of gloves, but that ward retention was very, very powerful for being able to take more hits. If you're doing the low life version and using 𝐁𝐮𝐲 with Last Steps of Living, and it was actually pretty powerful. Although there are other gloves that you might want to use instead. If you had, say Ravenous Void or something that gave you a ton of health,
for sure,
it's probably better. But it does have uses. Because you can use it endgame, I'll go ahead and put it in the S. I just don't feel like they're OP. I feel like there's other better things to put in this slot, but the ward retention is powerful.
I think also, now that we talk about these gloves, I love this mechanic. The ward retention per 1% uncapped cold resistance. Again, I would love this to be more common in the game. There's many classes that have way too much of certain resistance, right? For example, on Leech, you can overcap necrotic resistance really easy. In Sentinel, you can overcap fire resistance basically on every build, right? Because you have fire resistance for free everywhere. Now even more with the new polearms coming next patch. So I would love, to if they keep exploring this mechanic of, getting damage, getting survivability, getting armor, getting whatever it is per uncapped stat. I would really hope they keep exploring this because I think it's really, really interesting and really enjoyable. So yeah, more items like this basically that are interesting and give players possibilities.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to see more stuff like that, especially just off the top things like for like Void Knight and Void Resist, because you can get a ton of it. Getting things like 1% Time Rot or Future Strike or something with an effect to it, based on that percentage of Void Resist, things like that for every class. Poison for the rogue and stuff. It would be pretty sick to have some more things like that in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, next we have the Sacrificial Embrace gloves. These babies come with the implicit on the Crusader gauntlets for that void resist. Your critical strikes do not deal additional damage, which means they're just a normal hit. You can have up to 28% chance to stack a stack of Abyssal Rite on crit, plus 10 maximum Abyssal Rite stacks, and then when you directly cast an elemental spell, each stack of Abyssal Rite is consumed to grant the spell plus 10 spell void damage and plus 10% void penetration per stack. Gives you increased void damage and increased melee attack speed, and you have to be level 81 to wear them. What do you think?
This item. I feel like when the devs made this item, they had like a real clear build in mind that I haven't seen anyone find yet. Maybe you're a Void Knight, you attack really fast, and then you use echoes, and your echoes deal a shit ton of damage because they can be fire damage, right? The echoes. But in my case, the only use that I was able to give to this item was to Glacier from the Zork. And it was actually a pretty fun build. It was a bit gimmicky, but since Glacier doesn't do additional damage anyway on crits if you get the targeting node, I was like, well, I can just get basically, and Glacier has big AoE, so if when you Glacier a pack, you instantly get 10 stacks. So your next Glacier basically gets, 100 Void spell damage. And, since Glacier has like really good effectiveness, these gloves can give you basically up to 350 flat Void damage for the big Glacier explosion. So I was using them for that, and that build was pretty good and playable. But I think these gloves are especially for how high level they are and everything. These are complete gimmick, right? Like I can't. If you want to do damage with Glacier, you can do it other ways. They don't really bring anything special that you can't just do, which is just damage. And again, I haven't really found a way to make an attack speed build where you wanna not just build like regular melee, and just do melee damage to then have like a big spell. So for me, they're interesting. I tried playing around with them, but they're just a bit gimmicky in my opinion at the moment. Yeah, pretty much.
For me, I think I found a pair. I'm not sure, but I know the first time that I've looked at these, I know I haven't used them yet. My first mind, I see the increased void damage, the attack speed, and all that. First thing I go to is, Void Knife. That's like where I'm thinking I'd want to go. Thinking of an elemental spell, such as, like Smite or something to get it to go off. But then the thing that gets me is now that I hear about the build you did, I'm wondering if you could use, say, Glacier, get those 10 stacks, and then use Meteor on your next spell and use the non-meteor damage multiplier inside of the skill tree with that 100 base void. I'm curious how hard that would hit, if it would be viable.
You can definitely do that, but it's just gonna be like I tried doing stuff like that too, right? But the problem is like on a real scenario where you have to juke and you have to look at your stacks and then you have to aim your meteor. Is it really gonna be playable? I think it would be more of like a damage showcase for the dummy than an actual playstyle you can commit, and that you're not gonna be. Because what if, you use Glacier and then by mistake you use a Glacier again and then you lose your stacks and blah, blah, right? Or, I don't know. They're interesting. It's just like the fact that the devs added melee attack speed on them just tells me, I don't know, maybe you can do something with Spellblade where you like attack really fast with Mana Strike or something, and then, because you can make Mana Strike crit a lot, and then the spells from Mana Strike deal a lot of damage. Something like that. I don't know. We will see. I think this need to be explored a bit. For me, they're A at the moment. Maybe there's hidden potential that I don't know yet. Maybe you guys know of builds and you can comment it down below. And maybe we just missed a super OP build with this. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I definitely might go play around with them for a bit now, though. Got some ideas spinning. All right, up next we have the Ravenous Void. I have not gotten these yet. I know that for a fact. I've been wanting to get my hands on them. These are very, very powerful. All that increased health, the endurance, the fact that you can convert physical damage taken as void, and then, of course, that damage reduction. An absolutely crazy amount. That 25% damage reduction, huge. Yeah. But you do have to be level 91 or higher to wear them. And not to mention that they're about as rare as Orion's Eye, or just about.
Well, a bit less rare, but yeah.
What do you think about them? Have you found them yet?
I think these gloves are great. I think these gloves are so powerful that basically if you can fit them on your build, you just do, right? One thing to mention is that because these gloves don't bring any damage, and normally gloves are a good place to get damage because you can get armor shred, you can get attack speed, you can get crit chance, you can get main stat, etc. These are a very defensive option for your gloves. They are the best defensive option, and it's obviously they're not that great if you're low life because then you don't really benefit from them as much. But obviously these are SS if you manage to drop them. I know some people that do have them. I actually don't have them myself because let's be honest, I farmed them for a couple days. I killed the Gaspar boss like 50 times, didn't drop them. Apparently the drop rate was bugged and they couldn't drop at all. So then my soul was broken. So then I'm like, dude, I play a lot. If I ever drop them, I drop them. If not, I'll just wait for multiplayer. Because I'm gonna lose everything anyway when multiplayer, well, not lose, but you guys know what I mean. We're gonna have to start again when multiplayer comes. So I'll have time to grind for this. It's not a big deal. But these are definitely SS. Shout out to 𝐁𝐻𝐻 for me for designing this. Really cool. Let's just talk about the art of this too. I think this item thematically and everything They're such a cool item. I think they're amazing. They're super powerful. And yeah, I mean, that's it pretty much. They're hard to roll to if you want good ones, because obviously you want a max roll on the void damage taken, a max roll on the increased health, but you want a minimum roll on the endurance threshold because you don't want to ever reach your threshold, right? So the lower it is, the better. So you always keep the 25 damage reduction. So really, really good item, honestly. Amazing item.
Yeah, it's well designed, looks great, and if I ever get it, I know I'll be wearing it on almost all of my builds because it is a very powerful defensive version of gloves. And as we know, defense is almost the best offense in the game. Obviously, killing things before you get to them is good, but defense is very important in Last Epoch.
Yep. And we will get to why one of the items that got added this patch is for me the best item in the game for that particular argument that Borman just made. We'll get there though.
Alright, we're on to belts, and we got the Thorn Slinger, which gives +1 physical levels of skills, gives you chance to bleed, increase movement, throwing attack speed, and even reflects some flat damage, which we can pretty much say is the most garbage affix in the game. But,
yeah,
what do you think about these?
I think these are basically like a Viper Tail, you know, the Poison Belt for physicals, pretty much. Amazing for leveling. The fact that it comes with movement speed with a leveling item is just like great because you can zoom. The +2 skills on physical is so generic. Again, you're getting this item at level 12. That +2 skills can be massive for something like hammer throw, etc. Comes with throwing speed. Comes with chance to bleed. Bleed has a huge, flat damage early on. So even if you just one stack of bleed can like basically double your damage at level 12, right? So I think they're just S leveling. And the plus skills, you know, the fact that it has a +1 to skills on a belt, even though belt, in my opinion, it's mandatory to have a crafted belt dispatch for endgame because you need the cleanse ailment mod on your belt and all the HP. It still has some potential to enable some wonky like combinations of nodes that you wouldn't be able to reach without exalted and stuff. So this item is usable through all the game, I would say, just for the plus skills. But I just think it's S leveling, and that's it. And after that, you're better off crafting something.
Yep, I agree. Same thing, move speed early on, always a great thing to have, especially since it'll speed up the campaign for you. The +1 levels at level 12 is huge. And then, of course, the fact that you can start wearing it at level 12, that chance to bleed, everything that you said, yeah, very, very powerful. So S leveling for me as well.
Yep.
The next belt, Azural's Fury. Probably pronounced that wrong, but this one gives you a bunch of flat health regen on a belt, which is new. You get increased fire damage, and then you have this unique mechanic where using a potion grants you False Water Fury until you run out of mana. During False Water Fury, your mana does not regenerate. It is drained at an accelerating rate. Generates or degenerates by an additional 10 mana per second. So 10 mana the first second, 20 the second, 30 the third, and so on. And then during this, every non-channeled melee attack you use has an added 20 mana cost to it, but deals 100 melee fire damage added to it, which is huge. What do you think about these? Have you found them? Have you used them?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much have everything except the Void one, the Void gloves. So, I mean, I have a build in mind with this, but I actually haven't checked how this interaction works exactly. My plan was to use multi-strike and get mana back on multi-strike, and then use smite also to just get attack speed and stuff, and just get basically try to keep my mana back with the multi-strike echoing and stuff, get all my mana back, and hopefully get it forever with potions or something. But to be honest, I'm surprised you haven't made a build with them, because they have health regen, which I know you love, and they have like a crazy interaction that I would assume you would have played with. For me, they're kind of gimmicky. I guess you can get a lot of damage with them, but they're kind of weird. For me, they're A, maybe if we're lucky, maybe B. Not that great. I would say they're A because they're unexplored at the moment. It's unexplored, this item for me.
So I actually didn't have one of these for the longest time, but then I think last Sunday we were streaming, and this was the belt that we were searching for. We finally had one drop, and the build
Mm-hmm.
in mind that I had right off the bat was I wanted to get the health regen and see how far we could go with the regifter build that I had once made, and see if we
Mm-hmm.
could, how much health regen could we actually get. That build, didn't do that well because while we had about 1,500 health regen, you had no damage. You had to, wearing the Shattered Lance for cold damage with melee skills on Paladin now is like garbage. You wanted to go smite, you want to be a spellcaster now. So that build was pretty much dead. And then the other thing I wanted to try was, as you said, I went to the same thing, multi-strike. Wanted to get the stacks so that we could have
Mm-hmm.
as many stacks as possible. You get more mana per stack. You go with attack
Mm-hmm.
speed. You try and outdo it. I will tell you this now. You will not keep your mana for more than like 2 seconds. The mana drain is ridiculous. So multi-strike itself is going to cost 20 mana. And then on top of that, you're degenning mana at an accelerating rate. So you're going to go through like 100 mana. The faster attack speed you have, the more mana that's like disappearing quickly, and it did not work. Like mana was gone within 2 seconds every time you're out of potions, but it did okay damage. But yeah,
So I'm guessing B for you then.
I'll put it in A because there's still a lot of other synergies that we probably haven't done with it. But I can tell you
Okay.
that unless you have a ton of mana, like it's basically going to be like a few hit. You're only going to get a few hits out of it, and then you're going to have another potion or something
I
ready to
mean,
go.
I
But
think this item right now, because we're single player, right? We're obviously looking at items on a single player environment. But maybe this is the kind of item that when group play comes in, you might want your carry to wear, and you save your potions or whatever. You get a boss. Maybe someone can give you mana regen or something for when you lose your potion, you instantly get back to mana or something as soon as the effect fades, and you can just like burn bosses or something.
yeah, 4 mages are
But
hitting you with focus.
yeah, I have exactly something weird like that, right? But at the moment, yeah, they're a wild item. Again, if someone has played with them, I would love to know it, just because you only have so much time to play with so many items, right? So interesting one to say the least. Interesting one.
Yeah, it's funny that we both went to multi-strike trying to figure out a way to get mana back, quickly enough to do it, but
Great
it's
minds
too
think alike,
fast.
you know.
Yeah, it's too fast. But
Uh,
like I said, I wasn't min maxed or anything. I was just throwing a bunch of random stuff together.
okay.
Maybe it'll work. But we're moving on to boots, and the first one we have the Lessons of Metropolis. These babies give you increased move speed as an implicit, like all boots do. They give you a flat amount of dodge rating if you've been hit in the last 4 seconds, increased dodge rating, dex, increased move speed, and less damage taken while moving. These are wearable at level 1. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, these are, if you get this, some arboreal circuits, some falcons, you're fucking zooming. You have a shit ton of dodge. You these are definitely, if you're like re-leveling characters, right? And you have a falcon level 1, you have these boots and stuff, you have arboreal circuits. I'm pretty sure you can just zoom the campaign with this, at least till level like 30 or something. So yeah, these boots are really good for leveling, in my opinion. And the fact that they synergize with other leveling items like the Falcon, it's even better, right? Like you will have so much dodge, and if you get the dodge, I don't what they're called, the River One grasps, like the gloves that come with dodge
Oh,
also and
River
stuff.
Grasp? Yeah.
Yeah, you just have so much dodge, and because the area level is so low early on in the campaign, level 10, level whatever, you can basically just with the amount of dodge you got, you're basically running around the campaign with 70% of dodge, which basically makes you immortal pretty much. So really good leveling item, and it's good to be fast. So Bok.
Yep, I agree. I put in S leveling, and it is definitely great. You throw that on level 1, and you're gonna notice a big power seep. If you go from like a solo self-found character into like softcore and throw these bad boys on, you'll notice a huge difference. And move speed early on, very powerful. You throw on some Aberrant circuits. You throw on say the Viper Tail or the Thorn Slinger for even more move speed. You'll notice you won't even mind redoing the campaign because you're going twice the speed. It feels really
Yeah,
really good.
yeah,
Next up, we have the Dark Stride, also known as the Void Cleave boots. I think we
yeah.
know this, but these give you increased move speed. They give you a charge for Void Cleave or +1 charge if you already have charges. They give you +10 melee Void damage. And then the big thing, another new mechanic to this patch, is increased move speed based on added melee Void damage. And then, of course, you get increased Void damage as well. What do you think?
I think these boots. I think people give these boots more credit than what they actually are, because yeah, like the charge to Voidcliff is nice, but honestly, like I feel like Voidcliff is the kind of skill that if you want to give it an extra charge, just put the point in the passive, right, on the skill tree. And again, the base is so low level. The movement speed is like if you're playing Void Knight, you have movement speed on Orb, you have movement speed on Volatile Reversal. You can get haste, with a ring or something, or with Wings of Argentus, whatever you're using for haste. I feel like my Void Knight without this is already at 200 movement speed, right, percent. So it's like the movement speed is like a bit of a bait, in my opinion, late game. They don't have any HP. You're missing the vitality. You're missing the resistance. You're missing the increased health, the hybrid health, sorry. You're missing the increased armor. Oh, for a bit of damage. I think these are a bait. I, th- I think they're good for leveling and before you have something better, but I don't think they're. I would never use this personally. So for me, they're S leveling. But I could, if you have a specific build that needs the charges, and because you want to play like that, sure, you can use the end game. But I would just say make a different build, because the boots are not that great aside from that. That's what I think.
I want to say I disagree, but like you said, there are specific builds that are really powerful with them. And outside of that, obviously anything outside of, say, Void Knight, it's probably not going to be that way. But for me, I really enjoyed these boots. When I put them on, I noticed a huge difference for my Void Knight with Void Cleave. I didn't really like Void Cleave before using these boots, and then once I used these, it just took it to the next level. Like you become a zoom and Void Cleave being a movement skill in itself. You basically became like a you just didn't stop. Like you were just flying through echoes. Some people like to tie an erasing strike. Some people like to throw in some other skills. For me, I just liked having, the devouring orbs in there a little bit as well. But I also, you could do Void Warpath if you wanted. You could tack into what's the other Void spell that we had, or melee attack. Draw a blank.
You said the Erasing Strike.
There was erasing strike, but there was wasn't there one other one that we got that you could turn to Void? Rive.
Rive, yeah, for sure.
You can throw Rive in there, and if you want to like stay in one spot and attack, and it gives you, the nice thing about these pair of boots is most times our pair of boots are like the most defensive thing that we have in the game. You either have added health, you have move speed, you have vitality on it, increased health. You have all these defensive things, and then it's nice to have a pair of boots. Like if you just happen to have a build that has all of its defense elsewhere that you don't need anymore. This is like the most offensive pair of boots that you can get in the game. You're talking about flat added damage. You're talking about increased damage, and then the move speed is actually pretty crazy. If you throw something on like the Hollow Sword with added melee damage on it, you have 120 void damage. You're talking about almost 60%, or not 60%, but you're getting about a total of 60% from these boots altogether between the implicit, the added, and everything. And it's a huge chunk of speed that you can't get that much on anything else, and you'll just absolutely fly through maps. But I really enjoyed them.
These are fun boots. I wouldn't say they're good. They're fun. But
I'll put it in S endgame because I know they are very endgame viable.
I'm fine with it.
Which then brings us to your favorite pair of boots. I know you enjoy these. You said they're best in slot earlier. Yulia's Path.
Did I say they're best in slot?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this came with increased healing effectiveness, fire resist, necrotic resist, endurance, increased movement speed. You change Maelstrom to necrotic, and for every stack of Maelstrom that you have, your wolves will gain flat added necrotic damage, which is pretty cool. It is a unique thing. What do you think about these? And I was just going off our earlier convo where you said they're not, but yeah.
I mean, I think I actually like these boots quite a bit, right? I think as an item, even if you're not using the Maelstrom stuff, if you drop these boots at level 80 and you don't have 79, and you don't have something like super good, just the cold resistance implicit, that's worth a tier 5. The fire resistance, worth a tier 5. Endurance resistance, necrotic resistance, worth a tier 5. The endurance, worth a tier 5. The movement speed, worth a tier 5. So that alone makes this item pretty fucking valuable. You know, it's a lot of stats for just a boot. The only bad thing, you don't get health, which is kind of important. And you know, maybe you're not that interested in using Maelstrom Necrotic thing. There's a couple builds that need this item, right? I've seen the Necrotic Raptor, I've seen the Necrotic Wolves, all that, right? With Maelstrom, and they're definitely good boots. So I would definitely say they're S tier endgame, for sure. They're good boots.
Yep, I like them. I really do like that a lot of the uniques this patch have unique things to them that do like something you can't get anywhere else. The only thing that I would love to see with these boots is instead of adding like melee minion necrotic damage, is it would be cool if it converted one of your minions, maybe or all of them, into a necrotic version. Like I would love to see actual necrotic, like necrotic undead wolves or a necrotic undead raptor. Something that obviously would take a lot more time to implement, but would make it a lot nicer and scale the damage. Actually give them a necrotic tag on those said things. The reason I like these for like the wolves was because with like Ice Bite, you can convert all the added damage into cold, so it made it useful.
Yeah, and you do a lot of, you can do 100k bites with wolves, with this. It's pretty nuts. And I assume what you're asking, especially since we got next patch. Well, we think it's next patch, right? Don't quote me. But the 𝐍𝐴 gloves, right? The ones that are convert your wolves to squirrels. Like something like that, where your wolves are zombie wolves now, and they behave slightly different, or you can build it completely different or whatever. That would be cool. More things like that.
Yeah, something that completely transforms them and makes it the gameplay, because it's one of those things you put on, you see Maelstrom, you're like, oh, it's changed the visual of Maelstrom, that's pretty cool. But then your wolves are the same. The added melee necrotic damage, 1, doesn't give them a tag, so it's hard to scale, and then 2, on top of that, it doesn't change their look or anything, so it's just like something that's kind of hidden. It would be like really cool to see it visually. Yeah. Which brings us to, I'm not sure why this one's in here. Just gonna ignore that one. I had the Beast King show up in the database, but the Fulgurite Shard, the Lightning Dagger. I'm gonna skip the Beast King. We know about that one, but this baby's got great implicits. You got the melee physical damage, critical strike chance to increase physical damage, and then the huge one, a ton of added lightning damage for both shurikens and lethal mirage, while giving cooldown recovery to lethal mirage. It increases your lightning damage, and you get some lightning penetration, and you can wear 2 of them. What do you think about these bad boys?
This item is definitely S. To be honest, the only thing holding back this item for me is that you can't fully convert shurikens to lightning. So the problem I have with shurikens right now is, sure, you can get lightning shuriken damage on this, right? You can get lightning shuriken on your idols. You can get lightning shuriken on your chest piece and stuff. But then the base damage is still physical. Your rings for throwing attack damage are still physical or fire. So you end up having this weird thing where you're doing 60% of your damage is lightning and 40% is fire and the other percent is physical. And then in order to build spread, in order to build increased damage, what are you going to build on your gear if you can't build increased throwing attack damage on your gear? Are you going to go for just lightning? Are you just going to go for kind of makes it annoying when trying to scale the build for endgame. Shurikens do a lot of damage with all the multipliers. And again, it's just it comes with melee physical damage and lightning damage. So it's building hybrid in this game, doing 2 damages at the same time just sucks, because it means you have to get 2 blessings of shred, which means you're basically losing a blessing. Again, abilities that have full conversions in this game are just so much more powerful, so much easier to build. So it just kind of feels bad, having to. Because if you decide to go fully for the lightning aspect, then basically all the physical aspect is wasted or doesn't do anything. And if you want to go hybrid, it just feels it feels bad, because you would like to go full lightning, but you don't want to be punished for it. Again, it's a good item. I really like it. I saw Amarathi also playing with this and playing with both the lightning damage on Lethal Mirage and the one from Shurikens, and he was doing some. It was a pretty cool build to play, not the best, but pretty interesting. And again, it's also on a good base because it's Obsidian Dagger. But again, it's just so annoying, Obsidian Dagger, the implicit is 80% increased physical damage, and then you get a bunch of lightning damage. It's like, all right, my implicit is wasted. Cool, you know. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels bad. It's still a good item, so S tier for me. But I wish the depths give us more option for full conversions, so we don't feel like we're wasting stats. And that's what I think.
Yep, I agree. I think Tuna was the first person that I saw use them right when the patch dropped and he got one. I think it was within the first few days I saw a build pop up where they had multiple projectiles able to hit the same target with the lightning damage, and it was just destroying bosses and stuff, doing massive damage. And it's crazy that inside of the Shuriken's tree, there's a note in there to add flat damage to it, and it converts the visuals to lightning and adds the tag, but doesn't get rid of the physical. It is weird that it does not have a full conversion when everything else got converted. You already have lightning visual, you have the lightning tag,
you have the shock.
Yeah, it's so weird that it doesn't like just completely convert it. And then another thing, I've always been surprised that uniques, how they keep the same implicits. I've always been surprised that they don't change them up for something unique to that, so that you have a unique.
Yeah, why not just make it lightning damage in this case, right? It would make so much more sense. Like,
it is really weird that
they try to make them more, more versatile. So, if you're doing lightning damage, you get the lightning, but if you're not, at least you get the physical still. I don't know. It just feels like when you see a unique like this, you want to make sure that it's like, oh, it's the perfect fit for my build, and you have kind of like this half-cooked items where, like, again, I say this a lot, but I feel like EAG sometimes they're making cannelloni and they're making chocolate cake, and the item they end up doing is chocolate cannelloni, which doesn't really work, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. They do it a lot in last Epoch. It almost feels like a lot of times, you can see the same thing with like hit damage builds and ailments like Ignite and Bleed. They want these hybrid things to come out and like they just feel bad. Like there's no point of going hybrid. Everyone wants to go that one solo route because that's what you want to play.
Or they want us to play throwing with melee, right? And in reality, because they build so different, you're just basically doing both versions worst, right? For just the fantasy of it or whatever. Like, I like the fantasy of it, throwing stuff and then using melee. It's cool, but you need to make build towards that make sense, right?
Yeah. And just like an example, for this to have the increased physical damage, it would be really cool if it had some sort of physical skill that got boosted too. So like if you say you use the lightning shurikens, it gave you, added flat physical damage with your next physical skill. So it made sense to go back and forth with something, not just, random physical damage. There's no physical skill you're going to use with the shurikens, like unless you're going to run in with Shadow Cascade or something, like, beforehand. It'd be really weird, but
yeah, and then you're just playing again 2 builds at once, so it doesn't really feel like you lose your identity, right? You see this item and it's like, oh, I want to play lightning shurikens, and it's like you can, but but not all of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So next, we got the unique wand. We got Marina's Lost Soul, which comes with a huge implicit, one of the best ones you can get for necrotic damage. Spell necrotic, increased curse damage, negative spell mana cost, and then you get added spell necrotic damage, you get increased spell damage, cast speed, and of course you get this unique new function where you are damned when you cast a spell, giving you basically doing damage to yourself, but at the same time taking advantage of things that will do additional damage. In this case, you get increased effect of possess inflicted by hungering souls per stack of damned that is on you up to a max of 140%. And then it also reduces your health, which
a downside,
I almost thought we finally got rid of their downsides. I know that a lot of these uniques, we've been talking them into like not putting downsides on things, and then we get another downside. But
I think this one it's kind of thematic, honestly. I don't mind it that much because you're kind of like cursing yourself and you're supposed to putrefy yourself. I think thematic, it makes sense. And the item is so powerful that if it didn't have this downside, they would probably have to nerf something else, right? So, and again, this item to me feels the opposite of the Lightning Shuriken. Like all of the spells have like some sort of synergy, and it's up to the player to see how many of them they utilize. Like, because you could play this just with Dead Seal, right, to benefit from the Damned, and it's still a pretty great one just because the spell damage, worth basically like a tier 5 on a 2-handed weapon when it's a one-handed weapon, right? the flat damage is fucking great, and you can't get it anywhere else. The base item is great. And then if you're also using curses, then great. Then you benefit from the curses too, right? This item is absolutely amazing. It's definitely S. And it's a great weapon. Definitely S endgame viable. And again, it's not SS because it has the downside. Otherwise, it would be, in my opinion. Great weapon.
Yeah, the one thing that gets me the most about, the only reason I mentioned the 10% reduced health is because I feel like the downside should already be that you're doing damage to yourself. Damned is a necrotic, damage type. You will have increased necrotic damage. The more necrotic damage you stack, the more damage you're doing to yourself, and it reduces your health regeneration. Which, if you're running a low life build, can almost be looked at as a buff.
And if you Reaper form, health regeneration is not really a thing. It's
yeah, but the worst thing about it is just the fact that you're already working against yourself, and it almost reminds me of like Aura of Decay, where you're working against yourself. The more damage you do, the more you're hurting yourself, especially if you're running a low life build where you're taking all this damage, reducing the wards you're getting, and then to have that 10% reduced health on top of it, it just feels like a little almost too much for an end game item. Like it kind of it brings it down from the SS to an S item, and it won't get it to that top. But
you get so much damage on Dead Seal with this, with the damn stacks on you. You get so much damage. We're talking big hits. This is basically the weapon that will give you the most damage in Dead Seal Reaper form kind of playstyle. So, and again, the fact that you just get it, like getting an equivalent of this crafted, like imagine getting a one-handed weapon that has, that flat damage, or like with that cast speed and that increased spell damage. Like that item, you can't even get it, right? Like it's so, like you would need like a triple tier 7 or something like that to make out for this. So it's really good value at the cost, right? At the cost. But it's a good item, regardless.
Oh yeah, definitely a great item.
Yeah.
Especially, I remember when we all saw it, when it was one of the teased items before the patch dropped, and that damned thing, everyone was like, oh man, Death Wave is already going to be just absolutely crazy. And sure enough, it definitely was.
Sure enough, it was.
Yep. All right, next we move into the two-handed polearms. We have the Lethal Concentration, which gives you increased melee damage, increased minion damage, and a 25% chance to cast Jade Dust on hit when you used Harvest. Your poison damage modifiers also apply to your skeleton rogues, and 8% of poison minion damage done by your minions gets leached back to your minions for you. So kind of increases their survivability a little bit. Have you played around with this one?
I have not, but I've seen some builds with it. Seems really interesting, right? Seems definitely necessary for some builds. And I like that they're introducing stuff, to sustain minions and sustain player, like kind of like synergistically, right? That's kind of cool. Again, I haven't played it myself. I'm not the biggest minion folk, but I have checked on this item, and I've definitely seen it pop here and there. It's just based on that, I would say that it's probably an S endgame item, just because people use it, and there's builds that actually want it. So definitely a solid item. S endgame for me.
Yeah, this is one of those build enabling things, kind of like the gloves that we saw earlier for the Fire Tornado, where you have a skill that basically people are saying is almost useless, and then they throw on a unique to make it buffed. This is basically what this did for the rogues. The rogues were something that a lot of people complained about, didn't have a lot of power, and then this pops up, and suddenly your rogues are having just huge poison chance, throwing their shurikens, and they become, fun to play because they're doing such great damage now. Definitely a build enabling thing for your rogues.
Yeah.
All right.
Really cool.
Two uniques. The next two are ones that I thought were going to be like awesome, really good, and then just didn't enjoy them. But we'll start with Eternal Eclipse.
I think Eternal Eclipse has one use, which is using Void Cliff. Like I've seen people use it. Basically, what they do is they play around with Warpath, and then when Eternal Eclipse is off cooldown, they use Void Cliff, and they get that 500 flat damage on it or whatever, which is pretty nuts, right? For something like Void Cliff that scales 400%. So I think for that build in particular, it's a really good item, and a lot of increased damage. The resistances is good, and the fact that The only bad thing about this is that it doesn't come with crit. So if you do use your Void Cliff and you don't crit, it's kind of like, well, it feels bad, man, right? But aside from that, I think it's a good weapon. I would say S. Again, it's very specific, right? You need to play a playstyle where you're gonna have a small attack that is like for clearing trash, and then every 3 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever, you're gonna use this big boom ability, and you're gonna go back to waiting basically. If you're not playing that playstyle, the weapon basically feels horrible, I would say. But it looks sick also. It's not that hard to get because you can target farm it and stuff, right? So it's definitely gonna be better than a basic two-handed weapon that you could craft or whatever, especially if you're playing that playstyle. So for me, it's S endgame. Good weapon, but very specific.
Yeah, it has that very weird synergetic where if you use a fire attack, the fire attack gains the void damage, and if you use a void skill, the fire damage is increased. So it's one of those kind of like the one we had earlier where you could get your stacks of right, and then it would allow you to get like 100 void damage with an elemental skill, and it's like it doesn't really fit, but it does. Like you can work it into something. It has those where like you said, you can throw it into like Void Cleave, but I feel like as they expand out more skills for say the Sentinel class, and we get more conversions that have fire and void options, because it's kind of limited right now.
The more options, yeah.
I think it'll become better. This is one of those like sleeper weapons where a few patches will go by, you'll kind of forget about it, and then like some new fire conversions will come out, and it'll be like all different.
Yeah, I mean, you could also use it with, let's just say you convert Void Cleave, you could have like a skill that is fully fire, and then you Eternal Eclipse with one, and then you use the other one for the Void Cleave, which is Void, right? Right now, the most success I've seen is just giving Void Cleave the Void and the fire attack, so you use both of the procs in one single skill, right? But again, as Boardman is saying, like this weapon, the more skills they're added into the game, and not just for Sentinel, but other classes. Because right now, Void is kind of underrepresented at the moment, right? We don't know if we're gonna have some sort of like another melee specialization, maybe on the sorcerer, maybe on who knows, right? So maybe this weapon gets even more interesting as the game progresses and expands. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, the one I was looking forward to is I hope someday Rive gets a fire conversion, so you can get the doubled void damage while it's a fire skill, and then it would be pretty sick. But yeah, there's some conversions in there I hope happen someday down the road.
Especially if you can time your attack speed chain, so the third Rive is the one that always gets the proc, so you go like boom boom, and then Eclipse pops on your third one. You know what I mean?
With the guaranteed
crit. Yeah. That would be pretty sick, huh?
And then we have the Battle Mage's Endeavor. And this baby comes with added melee lightning damage, melee cold damage, spell lightning, spell cold, melee attack speed, move speed even for a two-handed weapon, and then a up to 18% chance to cast lightning blast when you use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy. And this again is one of those weapons that they just want you to play a hybrid thing, and you get two worlds that don't like mix the best.
Yeah. Not only doesn't mix the best, is a two-handed weapon, so it already means either no catalyst or no shield, which is the best thing to do with Spellblade and Mage. You get you get Lightning Blast, which is like, well, if I'm building Lightning Blast for damage, I'm not really gonna benefit from it because I don't have enough flat damage on this weapon. And if I'm building spell damage on my gear or lightning damage on my, like, what am I gonna build on my gear? Elemental damage, so everything benefits from it. But then the melee attacks still scale from the melee physical damage of the weapon because it's 60, right? And it's just one of those things where your damage is so spread out. There's so many things happening, and all of them don't happen at big enough amounts where you feel like compelled of, okay, this is what I'm doing. You're doing a lot, and you're doing all of it wrong, basically. Again, I could see you using this weapon, if you drop it at level 46, you could use maybe the proc of Lightning Glass to get Lightning Aegis on a melee class to get the damage reduction. Why not? But yeah, I think this item goes to A or even B, honestly. Like, it's not that great, in my opinion. Not that great.
Yeah, even the ways that you like theory craft with it. So, like for instance, the first thing you might think of it, you're going to Spellblade. You know that you're thinking you're gonna
Yeah,
do lightning damage. You're thinking that you might go Mana Strike and do the lightning and Mana Strike. That way, you still have decent attack speed. You'll do the melee. You'll
yeah,
get lightning. You'll get lightning blast. Or now they call it something else inside the tree. Now it's not thunder or something, but it's
hmm
something else that it's called. You get all that together. You think, oh, this might actually make Mana Strike good, and then you find
or
out
fire
like
or us or whatever. Yeah,
it ends up doing basically nothing. The melee
yeah,
physical damage, is different than the base type of what you're wanting for the elemental damage. It just
yeah.
none of it synergizes the way that you wish that it would. Maybe it just needs an influx of numbers, but I would like to see some straight hard cold, or not cold, but just straight up conversions to be able to use it better.
Yeah, it comes down to the same, right? For example, let's just say you want to use this with, let's just say you want to make a build where you're casting, I don't know, Lightning Flame Brief, right? And then you also get some Lightning Blast on top of it, or some Lightning Fireballs, right? Since you can cast Fireballs with Flame Brief. The problem is like, well, that 60 melee physical damage is not getting converted on the Flame Brief tree. And it's basically the biggest chunk of your damage is that, because you only get 18 melee and alien lining, right? So, and all of your more fire multipliers on the tree don't affect this, right? All of your more fire, more lining, it's not gonna do anything to the melee physical. So it's just basically a waste. Again, melee in general is in such a disadvantage because how damage works for melee. If you're not playing a full physical build, or you're not lucky enough to use a weapon that has elemental damage as a base, which they're more and more introducing, and I'm glad they're doing that. You're in such a disadvantage because again, spells, because they have adaptive spell damage, it doesn't fucking matter, if your spell is, as long as you have the spell tag you want, your weapon is going to be good for your spell, and you're always going to be able to scale the damage you want. But again, let's take a look at a crystal sword, for example, right? The base, 180 or whatever, 160 elemental damage with attacks, 40 flat physical damage. Well, that's great. Like that's 40 damage that I'm not gonna be able to do anything with, because if I'm playing an elemental skill, probably doesn't have any. Obviously you can benefit from generic more damage, but it's not gonna benefit from things like your idols or your gear or whatever, right? So again, I wish, especially in the ones that are thematic, like for example, if you're doing Flame Brief, why the fuck does Flame Brief do physical damage when it's like literally a fire wave coming at you, right? Why not just make a full conversion? Again, I don't get it. It will help melee so much, and melee is already underpowered as fuck, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you where it just feels like they want us to play hybrid, and the hybrid is not even well designed at the moment, so it just feels super punishing and super dumb. So yeah, that's it.
And I get the point of the hybrid builds because they're way more interesting than a normal build
Yeah.
is. Even builds that have like multiple hybrid things. You have spells that are being procced by melee things, and then straight up DPS spells that you're using at the same time. Like it's cool. There's nothing better than when you play a
Yeah.
throwing attack that
Bow Mage, for
procs.
example, has that feeling, right? Where
Yeah,
you're using bow attacks too. But that one is actually makes sense because you can just scale that one thing. That's why it works.
yeah, it has that nice conversion where you're
Mhm.
basically just doing the damage with spells, and that's the whole point of it. And then
Yeah.
something like hammer throw where you have throwing attack that's proccing your smites, so you're spell based.
Yeah,
You're
but your
completely
damage is
spell
basically
based.
smites. Yeah.
Yeah, so while it is a hybrid and has hybrid effects, you can build into one and make it do well. Whereas some item like that sword, you can't just build into one and make it do well because it's so split and divided. It's very difficult to do.
Absolutely agree.
So then we move into the two-handed staffs, and these things, some of these are really powerful. Our first one, the Curse of Perseverance. This one gives you +1 to spell necrotic level of skills, increased necrotic damage, chance for hungering souls to fire additional projectiles. I'm sure you'll talk about that. Flat health, nice, and 1% of necrotic damage leeches to health.
I
What do you
mean,
think?
I think you drop this at level 20. Holy shit, you can clear the campaign with this alone. Again, I think later on, especially if you're playing Hungering Souls, you're probably already been able to spec into the extra projectiles, or you're probably either just playing like single projectile one, right? Where you probably don't want to be running an adept stuff at that point. But for leveling, this weapon is absolutely excellent. I really like that it's thematic. I really like that I really like everything about it. Really, it's very specific against because the best is when you're playing with Hungering Souls. But again, it's a great weapon. I love the theme of it, and every stat on it is great. Even the HP at level 20, 73 HP is pretty fucking big. You know, you're like what 300 HP at that point. Like it's big. Good weapon, really good weapon.
Yep, I agree. While it does, it's obviously built around necrotic. It's built around hungering souls. It's a great leveling item. And there's a few of these that are in game that are meant for like leveling, but then they kind of die off. This one has several things on it that you can't get early on, and if you don't have, the leveling experience can feel really bad. So one thing I've always said about the Sentinel is when you use a melee skill or smite with the Sentinel, you get that 25 health and 10 mana every hit. That makes you feel almost immortal going through the campaign because you're getting health and mana back crazy. Then you have something like the Primalist that does not get anything like that, and if you're playing something that has no leech, you're screwed because you get hit, you don't have any health regen, it's horrible. The nice thing about this is you have all these projectiles so you can take out trash mobs. At that point in the game, they're doing enough hit damage on the first hit that they're actually, hitting hard enough to kill things. You get the plus level, you get flat health, but then you also get leech. So like everything that you could possibly need early on is covered. So it is really good, especially for leveling. Of course, at the low implicit that it has, it's not going to do you very well once you're done with the campaign. Your damage is going to be better as soon as you have an end game, 60 adaptive spell damage to 20. That'll outperform it.
Yeah.
But great for leveling.
Yeah.
The next one we have.
I wish, not that you mentioned this, I really wish, I think they have some plans for this, maybe with the Eternity Cache or something that's coming next patch. I'm really, really eager for next patch. Hope all of you are hyped for it, because maybe we're going to get options to do precisely what you're talking about. Grab items that are really good for leveling, but they fell off because of their base item, like the base implicit, and maybe have a high level version of it, so you get the unique effect plus having a good implicit. Really looking for that. I think the game would highly benefit from something like this. And make it a chase, right? Not something that is just granted to you for free, but really cool.
Oh, hopefully. Yeah. I was actually, it's funny, I was just asked the other day in my stream. So I have like 20 of some of the same uniques that are like garbage that you won't ever use. And people ask me, why do you keep them? Like, just keep the best world one, throw the rest away. And I said, well, you never know what Last Epoch will do. Someday EHG might be like, hey, you can combine those for this, or you can do this. Or maybe it's something I told them. I was like, I know they said Exalteds for the Eternity Cache, but I said, hey, if it turns out you can throw a unique in there and just, sacrifice it for a fix.
Currency, yeah.
Boom. Maybe now you want it.
I have 30 wing guards, you never know.
Yeah, you might need it. You never know what EHG is going to do. They said the same thing for idols. They're like, why do you keep them all? Why do you pick them all up? I'm like, you never know when they're going to change and fix, and suddenly what you need is on there.
It's funny that you mentioned this, right? Because, for example, I never, ever, before the new idol grid, I never pick 1x3s. Because it's like, why the fuck am I going to use a 1x3, right? When I can use the 1x4s, and I can just put 4 of them, right? The 1x3s were kind of looked down as, well, what you use before you get the 1x4, right? Yeah. And now 1x3s are fucking crazy, right? Because you can put 6 of them or something. So 4 of them plus a 2x2. So yeah, you never know where the game is gonna take us. So keep your items, guys. You never know.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was like. You never know what they're gonna do. I've learned my lesson. You just collect it all. They give you plenty of stash tabs. Just put it all in there, and hopefully, you find a use for it someday.
Sometimes you find things and you go like, well, I don't think this is good right now, but maybe they buffed the shit out of the skills, so I'm gonna keep it.
Yep. Yeah, and they've done that before. People like 1x1 idols just never had a use before for 1x1s.
Never.
And now they fit in there if you want to squeeze them in. If you run like 4 even the 1x3s, which you can fit 2x2s in there with them. But if you run any 1x4s at all because you need what's on it, all of a sudden 1x1s are very useful to fit in there in the tight spots.
That's what I'm doing right now with my endgame characters. I'm looking for 27 armor with 14 health 1x1s. That's basically what I'm looking for, like 10 hours a day. So yeah. Imagine if I didn't trash all of them for these 5,000 hours of gameplay. I'd probably have a lot of good ones.
Exactly. Next we have the Aberrant Call. This one comes with adaptive spell damage, melee physical damage, a ton of increased damage over time, and then its unique effect, it gives you plus levels to summon wraiths, and it can increase the maximum number of them that you can have. It also makes your minions lose percentage of their current health per second. That is a big downside, but it gives you increased mana regen, and not just a little, a ton,
A
and then
shit ton, yeah.
increased minion damage. What do you think about this? Have you used it at all?
I used it because I found it on the recent Necro tournament, dude, I think if you make like a poison-based version of raids and summon zombies, right? The volatile zombies, because you don't really care about them losing HP because they're gonna die anyway. Dude, if you do something like that, the mana regen is so crazy. You get 16 mana regen just with this item, plain. And you can craft mana regen on top of it. You can probably get like 20 something. You can legit just spam those, and because it comes with, minion damage and stuff, I think you can make a pretty fun build with this. And again, the mana regen alone makes it an item worth considering, because hey, you're playing a build, you don't have enough damage, or you don't have enough, and it's a composite stuff, right? So if you're doing, even if you're just doing dots, the fact that you can just spam your abilities thanks to this mana regen on weapon is something that we used to build back in the day in 7.6, right? That was the meta on every 200 weapon, the suffix was mana regen, and obviously that's not the case anymore. Then it went to flat mana, right, and blah blah. So yeah, I think this weapon is definitely S. Good weapon, interesting weapon. I haven't played too much with it, but when I did play with it, it felt really strong. And raids are a bit unexplored in my opinion at the moment. I know you were playing with them recently, but I really hope to see what people can do with this. Again, I'm not the biggest minion person, but this definitely seems strong. What do you think, Boardman?
So, I love the weapon. The weapon is good.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the weapon is it exposes another problem in last Epoch, and that's when I hate when a weapon or a unique is build defining. In this case, this is a very Wrath build defining weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience, and we had a huge discussion on the forums about this, and some people were saying it's not true, others agreed. But overall, without this weapon, I feel like Wraiths are basically useless. If you take the +2 maximum where you can only have 2 of them so they can be permanent, it's not enough to sacrifice a whole skill slot to them, especially with the other minions that can do great damage. If you only have 8 max Wraiths, where if you don't have this item, 8 max that are still decaying incredibly fast, not really worth it. They take a ton of mana. But then you have this unique, and you throw this on, and suddenly, the mana's not an issue. You have plus levels to the skill. You can, double to triple the number of Wraiths that you could have. And suddenly Raise is good. And it's like, great, now Raise is never going to change. They're not going to update the tree because this unique makes it viable, but then it means there's only one way to play it. And I hate it when they do that. Hungering Souls is kind of in the same boat, where you can have, Death Seal lets you proc Hungering Souls as a single projectile.
Yeah, but Hungering Souls on its own is not that great, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you do the poison thing, like the damage over time version.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I love it. It's a great two-hand staff. It's very powerful. I'll put it in S and N game because you can play Raise with it. It's very powerful. But I hate how it exposes another problem where Raise may not change because people are like, oh, it's great in end game, but you have to have this. And it's like, all right, now there's only one way to play it. Whereas,
I mean, in that regard, it's true. When I was using this weapon, actually, I was using it with zombies. Because, I didn't care about the minions losing current health, and I just wanted mana to spam zombies, right? And the minion damage worked for zombies too, right? So, and to me, volatile zombies are just better raids, pretty much, on every regard. So I really wish I wasn't a big, I've never really played with raids before. I know you were a huge fan of the old raids. We all know that, right? The fucking Boardman army. But yeah, when I looked at the tree of raids, because the tournament was raid, zombie, and something else, I was like, damn, I really don't know what to do with this. So yeah, raids don't seem that interesting to me, but might as well use zombies and raids with this. But yeah, you're probably right about what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah, it's one skill that, yeah, like you said, it's like your Vengeance or it's like your Soul Feast. I loved it. I knew it had to go. Like, you knew it was too many. You can't have 300 Rays on the screen. But then it went to what it is now, and I won't play it. I tried it. I was like, this is dumb. Maybe if more time passes by, but to me, Rays are where Soul Feast is, except that, there's a unique that somehow makes it good to play it one way. And I hate skills that can only be played one way.
It's funny because I saw some Soulfist builds that are actually not doing that bad right now. Like I saw Amon was playing Soulfist crit, and well, he's doing 3 times more damage than Vengeance. So yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, let's move on.
All right, Jasper's Searing Pride. This baby is an end-game item with 70 melee physical damage. Comes with up to 80 adaptive spell. Comes with added melee physical damage, block chance on a two-handed, block effectiveness, and the best part, on a good rolled one, on a best rolled one, you can get 3 levels to Flame Reave, Surge, and Enchant Weapon. And then for its mechanic, when you use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy, you gain a stack of Searing Blades for 8 seconds. Each stack of the Searing Blades gives you +2 melee fire damage and 20% chance to ignite. Have you played with this?
Yeah, I have like 20 of them. Again, this is a really cool item, but there's a lot of things about it that annoy me, right? For example, it seems to be for Enchant Weapon from Flame Reef and for Surge. It gives you melee damage, but it's a staff with adaptive spell damage, with a really low attack speed, but it wants me to stack attacks, because the more stacks, the more passives I get. It has with block chance, even though I'm not going to be able to get block chance anywhere, so basically having 20% block chance and no block chance is basically... It's not a mechanic that you just want to have a bit of it. You either want a full commit or not really, right? So, and again, you have this another thing where it comes with 70 melee physical damage, 75 melee physical damage, and then a shit ton of fire, and it's meant to be used as a mage where it doesn't have any melee physical scaling, or doesn't have conversions for the melee skills. This item could be so good if just the physical was just not physical, or the skills had conversions. But because it doesn't have it, I think it's just endgame viable when it could have been way better. This item kind of makes me sad. It's a really cool item. But again, maybe there's some secret build where you're benefiting from the spell damage and also the physical damage, but I don't know, needs more testing from my part. And the most valuable thing for me is just the fact that it comes. The passive is really good for something, if you're playing the classic Spellblade with Firebrand, you press Firebrand, stack Searing Blades, like 10 times or whatever, and then you use your combo, and boom, suddenly, well, you have a shit ton of damage for your Flame Reef with the Flame Reef ring or whatever. But again, could be better in my opinion. S tier for me, just S tier.
Yeah, I put it as end game as well. Since you can use it end game, it works. This is again just like the other weapon that I said was a sleeper weapon. To me, this is a sleeper one. This one comes with the most melee physical damage. Well, not the most, but comes with such an amount, right off the bat, that it's crazy. And it's going to be one of those things where, say in the future, they rework the mage class, and Spellblade now gets a couple of skills that have conversion of all added damage.
Then it's crazy.
Then suddenly the weapon, it just takes off. So for me, it's a sleeper weapon in hopes that they make some conversion changes. But outside of that, like you said, everything just doesn't really synergize the way that you want it to. You have melee physical damage, but all your skills are either cold or fire. You have block chance, but you can't wear a shield. It's crazy. But you do get a lot of levels out of it. So, if there's a skill like Flame Reave where you needed 1 or 2 more points and you didn't have an exalted version of it, you can get that here.
And they're useful levels too, right? Because Enchant Weapon is one of, and especially Flame Reave and Enchant Weapon, they're 2 skills where plus skills is really good. Flame Reave has a lot of more damage that you want to grab. You could have 30 points on Flame Reave and you would still want more points. So definitely useful, but is it worth not just going Crystal Sword, Bastion of Honor? No,
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Well, is any of the items worth instead of just using Bastion of Honor? That's the true question, right?
Bastion of Honor is a hard one to give up for a 2-handed weapon. I still haven't got a shielded Bastion.
You're crazy if you do it.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to push the corruption and go defensive. Yeah, it's crazy. As for our new quivers, we have the Sanguini Horde, which gives up to 125% of your chance to bleed on hit, gained its bleed chance per second with hail of arrows, gives you bow attack speed, damage over time leeches health, flat health, flat mana, and negative mana cost 2 Hail of Arrows.
I mean, it's a nice quiver, right? It's pretty cool. But I think with Hail of Arrows, like Hail of Arrows is a skill that already works without this. So if you want to use it and you want to do a bleed version out of flavor and get some sustain out of the leech, it's cool. Like everything, the health is nice, the mana is nice, all of it is nice, honestly. So it's not bad, right? It's not bad. But I wouldn't say it's like super, super good either. So for me, it's just S. It's endgame. You can make a build around this. You can have fun with it. But it's not going to be something like you must have this on your collection kind of deal.
Yep, I agree 100%. Like I was telling you earlier, I was just recently messing around with Hail of Arrows. Putting this item or taking it off didn't make a big difference. Hail of Arrows, there's already a couple ways to build it to make it do great damage. This item's not something that's needed to make it do that. But it doesn't hurt. The extra health that you get, the mana you get is nice. The reduced mana cost for Hail of Arrows is nice if you want to spam it, but it does take away all of the synergy you're doing for the increased mana cost for extra more damage in all the passive trees.
You would play it a bit differently, probably, right? You would play it like a bit more of a spammy version, where you just want to be spamming the bleed chance, maybe with like Salve the Wound or something. I don't know, but.
And then, of course, Hail of Arrows being a skill that's already a dot skill, that % damage over time leeches health is huge for your sustain and feels really good. But again, you can get leech in many other spots for the marksman, especially for bow damage. Even inside Hail of Arrows itself, you already get, I think you can get 12% of the damage leeches health. So it's not a mandatory item, but it is good for endgame. It does work. So, yep, that's endgame for me too.
Yeah.
The Nightbringer. This gives you a chance to slow, damage over time, chance to blind. Enemies you blind cannot crit, which I guess if you want to risk it and not build into your 100% critical strike avoidance that every build does, that's useful.
Yeah.
You get blind duration, more hit damage to blinded enemies with multi-shot a little bit. Increased bow attack speed at low life, and bow void damage while at low life. Kind of a weird one, but it's flat added bow void damage. So, yeah, just go ahead and start on one of those and see where it leads you to the next one and connect the dots.
Okay. So let me just say, this is my favorite art for the patch. I just think it looks sick. Like this fucking night void quiver thingy. Like I can just imagine this being an MTX, being the quiver of my character, and I just think it's amazing. But then I look at the item and it's like, all right, what is marksman good at? Or marksman is good at, for example, getting health back on crit. Hey, let's get a low life item, so you don't want to benefit from that. So you can't build into the crit on health nodes because you will lose low life, right? All right. It's a multi-shot made build, but the multi-shot doesn't have conversions. So what are you really scaling? Physical, void? Because there's no other way to get void and bow damage. So I immediately think maybe I want to use Detonate Arrow, because Detonate Arrow actually gets a conversion. But if Detonate Arrow doesn't benefit from the more damage, so it's useless. And then they also want me to use Blind, but Blind is bad. Just developers, please listen to me. Players avoid building Blind because it makes enemies shoot projectiles randomly. So as a player right now, you need to, you see an enemy, he's aiming at you, so you move to the left so that he doesn't hit you when he shoots. But if he's blinded and you move to the left, maybe he randomly shoots to the left because he's blinded. And even though you juked properly, you get hit by RNG and you die. Blind is bad, needs to be reworked. Remove it. Or remove the part where they aim erratically, right? Because that just adds RNG to the combat. It's not good. Everything about this item is just really cool, but nothing makes sense and nothing is good. You don't want to be low life as a bow user. You don't want to blind enemies. You still want to build crit avoidance, because what if you get hit before you blind enemies? Again, I would love to love this item, but I think it's the worst item in the patch. And I haven't seen anyone even use it or try to, except of me. I'm sure people have tried, but you know what I mean. I think it's a B item. I think you can do. What do you even try with this item? Everything is working against what you want to do in this game properly. Not to mention, like, how the fuck are you gonna go low life? You're gonna go ward or something. Like I don't get it. Like it's horrible. And by the way, the quiver has damage over time on it. On top of it, Yeah.
So that
Your turn.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that right before you got to it, but this is a quiver I haven't found yet. I haven't got it. It has the implicit that you want for hail of arrows. The only dot arrow that you can have, but then it's built for multi-shot, and then at the same time, you have, I agree with the blind and the erratic aiming is a really weird mechanic. I think in the beginning they just wanted to make the game different from other games and have unique things. I believe they should change blind. Like you said, they should rework it. I honestly believe blind should be connected to dodge. For every stack of blind,
like in PoE, a bit like evasion or something.
Yeah, every stack of blind that's on the enemy, you're 10% more likely to dodge their attack or something like that.
Yeah.
And then blind would be, it'd be a good affix. It'd be something you want to go for.
Now you avoid it. There's certain things that I don't take because they have blind on it, like the smoke bomb bow 𝐁𝐮𝐲. I literally avoid it, because it's so bad. So yeah, it's no bueno.
Yeah, and then for the low life, it's possible to do. Marksman can build low life. You can get your 100% crit. For that, but then you won't want leech. As for the bow void damage, I could see
marksman. You mean on blade dancer? That's what you mean.
Is it blade dancer? No, Marks.
Yeah.
Marksman has it at the top, right? Where you take the.
No.
Is it blade dancer? Oh man,
it's blade dancer.
I could have sworn it was marksman.
I mean, you could make a blade dancer with I might try it actually with the low life 𝐁𝐮𝐲. And then you build for Fuchs smoke screens, so when you get hit and you don't dodge, you get like 10,000 ward because you have like 20 stacks of smoke shrouds or something. But this is a fucking weird item, okay? It's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, if you don't get the crit chance, I'm not sure. I mean, that amount of flat added void damage though is crazy for full conversion. So something like detonating arrow or something that converts, it could be a crazy amount of damage.
Yeah, but I mean, I can just play bow mage, stack dexterity,
Yeah, but I don't have it.
You could do with this item too, But yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it. I haven't tried it. You put it in bad. I already put it in the tier list for you. I hope I get that sometime too, because I like to mess around with it. But yeah, it's all over the place.
It drops from the Admiral Hurton Void version, I think.
Yeah,
that's what I got it. Yeah.
All right, shields. Let's go ahead and discuss your Bastion of Honor. I mean, do we even have to discuss it?
I don't even know what they. Yeah, it's level 52. I just seen it. Oh my god.
Yeah, so basically to sum up what he said, it's the most powerful shield in the game.
Not the most powerful shield. It's the most powerful item.
Most powerful item in the game, especially for defensive wise, it is the most powerful item you get in the game.
Period. Yeah. It's the most powerful item. If
less
you have
damage.
It doesn't even matter. It's like there's nothing that provides damage equally to what this does to defense. It just doesn't. Continue. Sorry, I get excited with this one because I'm very emotional when it comes to block chance, as you know.
Yeah, I already put it in SS. I mean, I think everyone who's had it, play with it. I still haven't found it. I got a ton of builds just waiting for it. I've been farming the Black Sun now for like 3 days. Hasn't dropped yet, but as soon as it does, you'll probably see it in every one of my builds. But yeah.
I would legit go to the extent to say that if a build can't use Bastion of Honor, it's not even good, this patch. That's the extent I would go. This item is so broken that I would just say all the good builds want to use it. All of them. That's crazy. Unless you're playing maybe like Nova Boy or something, like a mage or something. But I would even use it on those, honestly. It's so crazy. You had 100% block, and with the block effectiveness blessing, you basically get 1,600 block effectiveness, which is 45% damage reduction, with the 14% less damage reduction, on top of it, multiplicative of nearby enemies, 60 health, and 60 mana.
And some melee physical damage, just for boot.
Yeah, just in case, you know.
Yeah,
And it's level 50.
this is one of those items. You know, like we were talking earlier about the necrotic wand, and you were saying how like the downside is it's because it's so powerful. But then you have something like this that has no downside, other than you can't wear a two-handed weapon or something. But I hate when I see items like this that have that, and they even give you a boost because you can't wear two-handed. You get the flat added damage.
Yeah, you get the flat just in case. Yeah.
And I hate to see items like this and then see other items that have a downside. And it's like, just get rid of it. You know, it's kind of like those nodes that you used to be like, oh, I get 30% more damage, but I get 20% less area. You know, you have those hybrid nodes and they make it feel bad. It's like, just give me the damage. Like, you can get it elsewhere. But yeah.
This item can make you literally face tank crystal elementals at wave 400. I've done it. And you say, oh, but there's the downside of you have to be nearby. With this item, I teleport into enemies as a mage. That's how powerful it is. You know, you see an enemy spawn and you teleport on top of it and you can't die. It's so OP. It's so OP. Block is OP, right? Like I've been talking about block being OP since I know Boardman, pretty much, right? But with this item, and the argument was, block is only OP if you invest on it. Block is only OP if you're a sentinel. Well, with this item, block is OP on fucking everyone. It's crazy broken. Crazy broken. You need this item on your collection. SS, for sure, best item in the game, period.
I've been waiting for there's a few skills in the game that honestly need reworks. Nobody uses them. Some of the top ones that come to mind, you know, Smelter's Wrath, Black Hole, these skills that are good and have like good things about them, and they should be good, but they're just completely unpractical and unusable.
Yeah.
For this shield, one of the things I've been looking forward to the most is if Black Hole ever gets reworked, and there's a way to have uptime of it that you would want, you know, some form of it to be able to cast Black Hole on yourself, so you're always sucking enemies into you. Just so you can have a shield like this that's, you know, so nothing can attack you from range. And, you know, you could use Elemental Nova or something to clean them up. But
make it even more OP. I like it.
Like, yeah, I've already thought about ways of trying to get Black Hole, but you can't have that 100% uptime. But you literally want to be in the middle of Black Hole. You used to run away. This item is so powerful. You now, like, want to get sucked in yourself and stay close.
Yeah, you want to be next to enemies. That's how powerful it is.
Yeah. All right, next we got the Flyer's Pride. This guy gives you block chance, block effectiveness, less physical damage taken on block, less physical damage over time taken, period. Chance to bleed on hit, increased bleed effect, health gain on kill. I've always hated the on kill effects. A bunch of intelligence and reduced health cost of spells.
And this item somehow is level 65 and Bastion is 50. Yeah. This item compared to Bastion, it's like, I don't know, I don't even know what to say. Like, they forgot half the coding or something. I don't know. It's decent, you know, the bleed effect is like an offensive shield, right? I've seen people play with it. It has some defensive stuff. But again, it's a shield with 20% block chance, so the block basically it's not that great. It's more, to be honest, this item could have been a catalyst, I feel, right? And it would have been the same.
Just gonna say that I feel like if this was a catalyst, it'd be perfect for something like a smite build, so you don't have to put nodes into the reduced health cost or the health consumption. The fact that it comes with intelligence, I don't like. Yeah, it feels like a catalyst, or it feels like they wanted to try a paladin to try and make it wear a shield but still be good for smite or something. But yeah, it's definitely nowhere as good. If you're gonna go shield and lose the base crit chance, you might as well just wear the shield of Bastion.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna go with, you want A or just bad on this one? I feel like it's still got uses.
I think it's playable. Like, nothing is as worse as Nightbringer. Which, by the way, the more I think about it, I'm gonna play Nightbringer as soon as I log off. Of this, I'm gonna play Nightbringer and see if I'll try this Blade Dancer crit thing.
All right, next we have McFluffin's Scales of Edera with its 3 different versions, and this bad boy is a catalyst. It's the highest base type catalyst you can get. You can get up to 14 intelligence, 6% spell base critical strike chance, elemental resist, attunement, and cast speed. And then, of course, for each one of them, you have the infusion of fire, cold, fire, lightning, cold, lightning, you know, whichever one you find, where you get a more damage multiplier with one for 10 seconds and less of the other, and then vice versa. What do you think of it? Have you tried anything with them? Have you played with them?
The one build that I have in mind with this one is either play Fireball with Lightning Blast, right? and get the Fire Lining one, and use because both skills you can basically make them 0 mana, right? Pretty much. The only reason I haven't played it is because I haven't found one that actually had 6% crit strike chance. I think this item is really interesting, and the only reason people are not playing with it and exploring it, it's because it's actually pretty fucking hard to get a good one, because you want to make sure you get the 6% crit chance on the implicit, because otherwise any unread scroll is probably going to be more appealing. The cast bit, I mean, it's not that important, but hopefully you get it a bit, and it also has to be the elements you want. Again, this item, I think it's also sleeper. I think it's powerful. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool, unique. But right now, because the meta shift is right now in this place, you either want to face tank people with Bastion of Honor, or you just want to blast everything from afar, from Elemental Nova or something like that. It kind of like, the game is not in a place where you can allow yourself to play around with like having a dual skill setup or something like that. That's because you have to invest. You have to have one damage skill and everything else needs to be support or defense pretty much, right? So I think it's interesting, right? I think it's also unexplored, like I said. So for me, I don't know if I want to put it on S endgame or if at A at the moment. What do you think?
I put it to S endgame because I made an endgame version build of it. I played with it for a bit. There was one version of it. I paired it up with the Throne of Ambition, which can give you the 400% cold and fire damage. And because the Skills of Edera is a more modifier, it turns that 400% at 80% up to 720%. So just between those two items against rares and bosses, you were going to have 720% increased damage.
Yes.
And then I did cold Static Orb, which is Static Orb is very powerful already. And then I did Volcanic Orb, just because I wanted single target damage for it.
But orbs.
You could have done Fireball or some, Fire Elemental Nova. You could have done any of those. But overall, it was actually a very fun place. I will say that as hybrid builds go, granted you had to kind of keep track of it a bit, but the stacks were there. It was easy enough to do. Playing 10 seconds of one skill and then 10 seconds of another and going back and forth is actually pretty fun. And it did enough damage that it felt all right. It obviously wasn't as powerful, if you would have just went all lightning damage like Lightning Nova and Elemental Nova. Yeah. But it was powerful enough that it went through empowered content pretty easily. It felt good. And for hybrid builds, it's probably the only one I've actually enjoyed playing.
Yeah, that's the only thing that is keeping it down for me, right? The fact that, and I don't think McFluffin, who made this item, was intended to be like best in slot for every build or anything like that, right? But I really wish there is a build where you look at this item, it's like you 100% want this item with this build, right? And like the fact that you said like, is it gonna be better than just playing a single element? No. Like I really wish. Like you could still do that, like play a single element and have a really good builds, but I really wish, like in the future, or we discovered, or more skills are introduced, or whatever, there is a build that uses this that can actually compete with the single element builds. That's kind of like what I wish. So a bit of a sleeper for me too at the moment, but I agree with the S.
Yeah, we'll have to see where it goes. There's a lot of these, are new uniques, and as the game expands, a lot of old uniques that we thought were bad, started coming around. So it'll be nice to see what happens.
Yeah.
Now we've got some relics. The first one, the Eye of Orexia, gives you increased volcanic orb damage, volcanic speed, cooldown recovery for it, volcanic shrapnel speed, and it increases your cast speed.
I mean, I like Volcanic Orb, but the thing is, like, when Volcanic Orb has a base cooldown of fucking 3.5 seconds or something, and in the same patch you have Static Orb that has no cooldown, costs less mana, and does 3 times the damage, and it's also lining, so more crit chance. You kind of wonder, like, because you go like, oh, this is kind of nice, you get Volcanic Orb speed, Volcanic Orb cooldown, that's kind of good, right? Volcanic Orb as a skill just needs an update. I think it's a cool skill, but again, why does it have a cooldown? Why does it have that? Why do you have to invest 10 points into reducing the mana and the cooldown to make it do less damage than any other skill anyway? The skill is cool. I like that you can play around with the speed. The fact that you can get it increased speed, so you can then, play around with the Volcanic Orb idols. Which, by the way, it was a huge nerf because with the new idol grid, because you can now only get 2 of them, and before you could have 4. So basically, it's another nerf on a skill that indirect nerf basically. I don't know. I think the item is cool, but I think Orb is just not in a great spot at the moment. It's probably the worst mage skill. So I don't know. I wish like you were mentioning earlier about the raid item, that it's an item that might feel like Orb is good when in reality Orb just needs. It's not because of. Let's not just fix it through an item and fix the actual skill. I kind of like feel like that. So for me, it's an A, honestly. It could be S. You could argue that it's an S. But again, if you're gonna play Orb, I don't think this is gonna make your Orb build 10 times better or anything like that. Orb's still gonna be a mediocre endgame skill, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I put it in the same spot. I already put it in A, just because it's not gonna make or break Volcanic Orb. It's not that. It's not a build enabling unique. It would be cool if it had some unique things to it. I would even take plus levels to Volcanic Orb. I'm surprised they didn't throw that in there. Other things like extra projectiles, like maybe you shoot out 2 orbs. It could be good just the way it is. I hope in the future when they rework the mage, this is like my idea that I've had forever that I really hope they put in, is Volcanic Orb. Inside the skill tree, you can take a node to where a black hole is cast with the orb and it sucks in enemies as it goes. I've wanted that for like ever.
Location also, that would be cool, right?
Yeah, or when you cast Volcanic Orb, just where the black hole is with the orb. So if you make Volcanic Orb stationary, the black hole is stationary. If you make it move, it moves. Yeah. And it sucks enemies in, but at an additional mana cost or whatever.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it would be really sick. But until then, it's just A.
And again, the base of this item, like, do you really want to use a level 36 physical fire and poison resistance base where you could have, elemental crit multiplier base or whatever? Like, again, these low level bases on relics and stuff, they're just so like, you don't really want to play this end game, right? So it's a shame because you want to use the item, you want to play Volcanic Orb, but the item has so many things pulling against it, right? So yeah.
Yep, I agree. And implicits are another thing I hope in the future they take another look at, because I hate that some implicits are like implicits you want, but they're on a low level base, and it's like I can't get a higher version of that. Hopefully, like you said earlier, Eternity Cache might have a way of changing this and making it good, but yeah, I do. Implicits are cool, and the end game ones that work for you always feel amazing, but then it's the ones that are like garbage. You're like, well, this sucks. I want a different one, but yeah.
Or do more of what they're done on some of the next items. I love when they introduce a specific implicits for uniques. For example, this one of the next items that we're gonna review, the Stormcarp Testman. Unique stone tablet, that stone tablet. Like, I love that they came up with this, and it has this physical resistance and stuff. It's like, I wish they did more like this, or how the Ravenous Void, has the gluttonous space or whatever that comes with vitality. I wish they were a bit more adventurous with this. And what if the implicit of this Eye over Eixia was just Volcanic Orb has 20% more crit multi or something. I don't know, and then suddenly it's like, holy shit, this is interesting and unique, right? I think implicits can be something that they could explore too, for uniques. They're uniques, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, next we have the 𝐁𝐮 Blasting Agent, another relic. This one comes with fire damage, chance to ignite on hit, reduces the cooldown or the duration of decoy by a ton. It increases the cooldown recovery speed for decoy a ton, so you can use it more than twice as often. You have a chance to ignite on throwing hit, increase ignite duration, fire penetration. You can see it's obviously meant for decoy. What do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, this wants you to use decoy for damage, right? Pretty much. The problem is decoy doesn't do. I mean, like, I would like to play this with decoy and the throwing flask, exploding flask, or whatever, but exploding flask sucks. And then decoy, the best thing about decoy is the taunt, and this basically gets rid of it, right? So I think it's a cool fantasy item. It enables a unique playstyle. You can definitely play this endgame, and you can make, like a kind of like a bomb decoy playstyle, and you can probably pretty decent at maps, actually, because, aggro's the mobs explode, keep running, right? But it's not like crazy good. I would say it's S endgame, because it definitely allows that playstyle, but it's nothing crazy. It's an okay item. the cooldown is cool, and that's about it.
I'll put an S for you. I have a couple of them, but I haven't used it yet, so I haven't actually played with Decoy. I know people used to say Decoy does massive damage, so I'm actually curious if you built around how much
it does
damage.
do damage.
But yeah.
What I'm saying is like you would like to use Decoy, right? And let's just say it has like a 3-second, 5-second cooldown with this, right? And then, well, on those seconds, you want to be using the flask, right? The explosive, how is it called? The rogue skill, you know?
Acid flask, but the fire
acid
version
flask,
is,
but with the fire version that does hits. But that thing, even if you have exalted gear and stuff, that thing hits the dummy for 1k because it doesn't have any multiplicative damage. It's just tragic, you know. It's that I think acid flask needs a completely rework. That abilities for hits at least is so bad. But yeah. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I ever tell you about the one experience I had with acid flask trying to get it to do damage with the burning daggers? Yeah,
I think we talked about it.
Yeah, you get plus
like,
100.
And you were stacking with Cinder Strike and everything, and you do all of this work and it ends up critting the dummy for 2k. I was like, what? How? This thing has 2000 flat damage. How is it critting for 2k? Because it just doesn't scale, you know.
Yep. All right. Next we have the Storm Carved Testament. This baby comes with physical resistance as an implicit. It gives you +6 lightning damage, spell lightning damage for you and your totems, lightning penetration, shock chance, lightning resist, a ton of flat added mana, and then 12% chance to summon a storm totem on hit with an 8-second cooldown and some attunement.
I think this item is great. It's definitely S endgame. It does a bunch of things that are pretty unique, like summon Thorn Totem on hit, really great. The fact that you get shock chance for you and your minions means that you can build your Storm Totem to do more damage to shocked enemies without building into the shock, because you get shock from your Thorn Totems, for example. I think this item is really interesting, really well designed. All the stats are desirable. All the stats work towards each other. Attunement is going to be good for you as a druid regardless, right? Because a lot of it scales with attunement. Mana is always useful. Great item. Definitely an S. A really well balanced item, and I like it quite a bit. What do you think?
The one thing I like about it the most, like you were saying, not only does it give you that unique benefit that's benefiting you and your totems with every stat, but every stat works together for the same thing. It's all lightning based. Like there's nothing in there that, you know, it's not like you get lightning spell, lightning damage, lightning penetration, and then converts it to a physical skill. There's nothing that just.
And the implicit is useful, which helps on top of it, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks really cool too. I like it. It's cool.
I think that one will see a lot of use in the next patch. I've heard totems are getting a buff, so I feel like it should really help.
I have it already on my stash, so I'll be ready for it.
Twisted Heart of 𝐿. And this gives you a percentage of your current health converted toward when you directly use a necrotic spell, a percentage of current health converted toward when you directly cast an elemental spell, +1 level to necrotic spells, +1 to spell elemental levels, and then it gives you a bunch of strength and cast speed.
Good item. I think this item is overhyped at the moment for the community. I think it's a really good item, right? But it's a tricky one. I think this item becomes really good once your characters are really good, and if you can benefit from the strength, right? If you're getting armor, you know, from, for example, using teleport, you get like a bunch of flat armor on teleport, things like that. If you're playing leech, right, and you're casting necrotic spells and you're stacking intelligence for the armor on Reaper form or on Dead Seal, right? This item is pretty good. I think it's a bit overhyped. It's a good item, but I wouldn't put it on every build like I see some people think or do. It's fun though, so a lot of it is the fun factor, right? Again, I think it's especially good on Leech because the strength actually gets a lot of value because you get so much flat armor as a Leech from using Dead Seal and from using Reaper form. So definitely S tier, and it's one of the best S tiers. But I wouldn't go as far as to say it's SS, but definitely S tier for me.
I put an S in the game as well. I have a build with it that I've like kind of put on the back burner, but I've been working with it, and I think it might go SS for you on this. But
is it Paladin?
It is Paladin, so you probably you're probably already guessing what I'm doing.
Yeah,
with
of course. Yeah, I have that. I thought about that, but is it better than just regular though?
For damage, not really, but if you think about remember the build we were talking about earlier with the Fury Belt, with getting a ton of health regen? Think of having how much you could legit get out of that. It's a very defensive build, we'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
There's very hard to die with that.
I don't know. I just feel it's so much easier to just put on a Bastion, go full damage, and go in. Right? That's kind of like my standard is always like this turbo broken stuff.
That's the reason I haven't put the build out yet. Is I'm waiting for the Shielded Bastion because
I see. You want to go full broken compilation. I see.
You get all the adaptive spell damage with that shield, so you get that. You have a ton of health. You get all the health regen and leech that keeps it full, and then you just have a massive amount of ward at the same time.
You mean the adaptive spell damage for wielding a shield on Paladin, right?
Yeah, so you still have all the damage, but it does. And
I assume it's a smite build, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lightning smite so that you can
that's
actually.
That's what I thought of doing too, but it just seems like too complicated when you can just go regular, you know.
Hopefully,
or just shield throw, you know.
Well, I haven't built too much into ward retention at the moment. I'm thinking about using those gloves and stacking a shit ton of cold resist to get all the ward in. But then I have like too many, uniques on, and it's getting hard to stack health. But I'm hoping to be able to get like 5k plus ward if I can get enough ward retention, and then you'll have 3k health and 5k ward at almost all times, and you get full leech. It's pretty nuts, especially with the 50% damage reduction from Bastion.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
We'll see once I find the shield.
We'll see.
All right, now we got to ring the tongue of the Aberrant Seer.
Again, another one of those to pair with Viper Tail and all of those like leveling poison things. The +1 to poison spells is actually not that bad, but for me it's basically an S leveling, a really good leveling item. Level 6, really good leveling item. That's it.
Yeah. I'm hoping, so supposedly we're going to get some reflect builds coming with these transformations. What was the one that I saw? There was a node where you reflected quite a bit of damage. Was it in the werebear form? I'm trying to remember where I read it, but
I think the reflection is from the shield thorn thing from
that's what it was.
From Spriggan, right?
Yeah, it was basically Ice Thorns reworked or whatever, but it's the new Thorn Shield that you're getting.
Storm Shield or something. It's just Thorn Shield or something it's called, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I'm hoping if that works successfully and feels good, I really hope that they start boosting this percent of damage reflected. Because they have to know at this point that we take way less damage than the mobs. They have way more health than us, and then at the same time we're mitigating a small portion of the already mitigated damage that we're taking. So you take an 80 damage hit and then you return 13% of that. So I want to get this straight. You're doing 8 damage to the mob. 8 damage.
Yeah, when he's doing 3k to you. Yeah, no bueno.
And has a half a million health. We're doing 8 damage.
I mean, I think the only way reflex works if first of all, if you can scale it and if the reflection is flat, right? Let's just say they give us 200 flat reflection, or it scales per player level or something. I don't know.
I wish that it just scaled with each other. I hate that this 13% of damage reflected doesn't scale with your flat damage that you already have too. Like, they don't work in unison together to actually get a decent number out there. So it's...
I think reflection as a concept is just, I don't understand why people want it. I don't understand why it exists. The game is about not getting hit, and you're rewarding players for getting hit. I think it's just dumb, and I wish it didn't exist. But I agree. It's if it's gonna exist, it could at least be useful.
Yeah, it could be good.
I mean, it used to be good on minions. Do you remember? Oh my god.
I remember.
Oh my god.
I actually brought that up in the discussion we had about Raze the other day. I said, well, now that Raze has finally been nerfed, can we bring back the reflect?
Oh, that shit was so dumb. Oh my god.
Next we have Devotion, which Devotion's just broken, so I put it in SS. Probably.
You think so? SS? It's broken, but
it's
I don't think it's broken on Bastion of Honor level.
It might not be that broken, but the way that Bastion of Honor is broken for defense, Devotion is broken for offense. I mean, it more than doubles your damage with Smite. It's a 100 straight up percent more modifier on top of giving you some defense.
The implicit is a bit useless on a Sentinel, you know.
You get 100% more damage, and you can have a ton more cast speed, up to 50% more cast speed. What?
I think it's cool. I've seen the builds in action. You know, the 0 mana builds, casting like with. I've seen it, right? It's.
It hits so hard. Let's just say that
it hits hard, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like a fun. Like, hey, look at how much I'm doing. But on actual practical scenarios, if you want to push the arena and stuff. Like, if you're forcing that low mana mechanic too much and you go out of mana in the wrong time and then you can't launch, you're just gonna get fucking one-shot, you know? So, I mean, is it a good item? Yes. Is it a really good damage? Yes. Can you compare it to Bastion of Honor, which is just you put it on and you're immortal? No. It requires work. It's only good for Smite. It's a good item, yes.
So you want to put
me personally, it's an endgame item. But if you're confident, this is your channel, we can put it on SS. But it's not on me, okay?
I feel, I'll move it down just for you because it's on you now.
You can put it the first one of all the S items. You can make it the best one of all of them.
It's definitely the best S item on there. I mean, if we compare Devotion to like Salt the Wound, there's just no comparison. Devotion's way higher, but I can see what you're saying. And Bastion is broken, but
yeah.
Ravenous Void for damage reduction.
And if Ravenous, if they existed, right? If
we could find
it would also be broken.
It's true. All right, we'll keep it an S for now. All right, we got 2 idols. First one, Throne of Ambition.
See, that's one for me is SS. Even it's not in the same regard as Bastion, but for bossing, for doing monoliths, I mean, just look at the stats, you know.
For bossing, it is ridiculous.
Huh?
I said for bossing, it is ridiculous. The 400% increased armor basically shoots your damage reduction through the roof.
And the best thing about it is like you can carry it on your inventory, use whatever idols you're using, and when you get to do the boss, you just put it on, right? You don't have to commit to, because it's an idol. It's not like you're gonna have to like, oh my god, I dropped this item and I lose my. No, you can just like switch whatever item you're using, whatever idol you're using, take it off, put this in for the boss, and boom, just like that, you have fucking 200% armor and 200% damage if you're benefiting from the armor, right? And the stacks are free, right? It's pretty nuts. I think it's a really good item. I like it. And I wish there was like a different version of this that wasn't as powerful, but that you could actually have uptime while killing regular mobs in something like arena or just mapping or whatever. Because this is broken for bosses, but if you're not fighting a boss or a rare, then it's kind of useless. So it's that. It has that downside, I guess. But yeah, it's really, really good item. I carry this around on every build pretty much, just for bossing, pretty much. So,
yeah, if you have anything outside of Sentinel or any of those armor builds that you have, putting this on with something that only has 500 flat armor, suddenly you shoot up to 2,000 or you're just above that. It's crazy the damage reduction that you can get for it.
You got so much value at these early numbers because the DR hasn't kicked as much too. Like you go from having 10% damage reduction to having 40, with just one item on hits. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. Next we have the Trinity of Flames. Every third fire spell you cast is guaranteed to crit, but has 36% less critical strike multiplier. You got increased spell fire damage and chance to ignite on hit.
Okay, this is my problem with this item. This item drops at level 90, right?
It's meant for your alts, man.
Yeah, I mean... So unless you're like twinking a character, you farmed it with your main account and you have it and you put it on for the campaign, where you can just use Gambler's Fallacy and do the same, yeah, I think this item is trash. I think it's trash.
Yeah, I put it in the bad category as well, just because I still haven't even found one. That's probably because I'm just not hunting in the right spot. I haven't done Spirits of the Fire too
I
much.
have it,
But I just would never wear it, especially not level 90 plus or even level 40 plus. It's not something I'd want. The damage that you lose with every third fire spell cast is a guaranteed crit. You already are going to have 100% crit on almost any build that you're building into crit.
Yeah.
Why would you want, something like that to have the less crit multiplier? So you can get more spell fire damage from a 1x3 or other 2x2s, especially if you have like over 300 mana. The chance to ignite's very little. It's just there's already better idols. Yeah, I wouldn't use it.
What does this even do? It's one of those where you're like, what is this for? I mean, if you could drop this like during leveling, right? Like in the campaign at level 1, it's like, oh, it could be useful, and you can maybe choose to go for Avarice instead of Gambler's Fallacy. So you could benefit from the fire if you're leveling with fire. So you get the leech from Avarice and the crit from this Trinity of Flames. But I don't know. It just seems.
Yeah.
It seems so bad. Yeah, I don't know. So bad.
All right, next we got 4 set items.
Yep.
And we're going to start off with the first 2 together, Vilitria's Storm Crown, and we have Vilitria's Downfall, the two-handed staff, which is the meteor converted into lightning.
Yeah.
And they work in parallel. When you get the set, you get +1 spell lightning damage per point of intelligence that you have.
Yeah.
I assume you've played Lightning Meteor?
I actually, funny enough, I don't have the helmet. I have every item except Ravenous Void and this helmet. I haven't played that much mage, I guess. So but I've seen it in action. I've seen all of you play it and stuff. And obviously, I can just by reading the stats, that this is gonna be good. I think even though it's a lot of damage for Meteor, there is clear downsides. You lose the +2 skills for other skills that you were using. If you plan to use, for example, Fireball with Meteor, you can't get the Pierce on Fireball, etc. Right? You lose the Frat crit, so you're forced to stack mana, and that's only gonna affect. It comes with the staff, right? Which is nice, and obviously you're gonna lose chance to slow, chance to chill on your weapon. You're gonna lose increased health on your helmet. You're gonna be losing Ashen Crown or Fracture Crown for defense. So while it's a very, very, very offensive helmet, and it's really good endgame, I wouldn't say it's like super broken, right? It's good. It's really good damage, but it's not better than something like Ashen Crown or Fracture Crown, or in my opinion. So for me, the set is S tier, the first set. You can definitely play this build, but I think there's better ways to play it, honestly. And to be honest, the extra damage you get is not even needed, because damage is never something that you're really lacking last Epoch. It's more like that you're just dying, right? Like, you will always run out of tankiness before you run out of damage in this game when you're in the end game or with a good build. So that's why I don't value it that much, and I haven't been actively like trying to farm it or something like that. But it's a cool item. I like it. What do you think?
Yep, I put it in the same boat. S endgame. It's a great set. You do tons of damage with it. Lightning Meteor looks cool. But again, this is a problem I have with any unique helm or unique chest or unique relic, but mostly the helm and chest, is those unique class-specific affixes that you have to compete with, the huge amount of health increase and flat that you can get in those spots. It's always very tough to give up all that defense that you can get and rare fixes for a unique
cooldown reduction for mage too.
Yeah, and in this case, you're not getting a ton for it. You already were gonna do, big damage, and to not get any health, to only get +1 to the spell, it's just not as good as it could have been. But yeah, it's definitely usable. Definitely could play it in endgame. I've made builds around it. It works. It's good. It feels good. It looks cool. But yeah, it's not broken or anything.
And the good part about Meteor is that you actually have the multiplicative damage for non-fire, right? Which that's a big reason why this item is even worth it, because otherwise, the 45 adaptive, just use Prophecy, right? Or Oracle staff, and boom, that's 100 flat, So how much intelligence you need to make up for that? Like 60, yeah.
Next we have Corsair's Blood Cow. Our
What
call.
does this even do?
So this one gives you bleed effect, bleed duration,
Yeah.
block effectiveness, less necrotic damage taken on a block. You get
And
a
the
chance for
block to
potions.
GB, right?
Yeah. And then, increased area of Mirage attacks with lethal Mirage. And then, of course, your two-hand set. You get that 100% chance of glancing blow converted to block chance. So you can easily get to 100% block chance with this.
Or you could just use Bastion of Honor,
Or you could just use
I
Bastion
think,
of Honor.
Yeah, for me, it's just... which, by the way, this shield is level 51. Bastion of Honor is level 50, somehow. For me, this set is like... I mean, if I just want to get bleed effect or whatever, I could just get it somewhere else, because bleed effect is now pretty accessible through other items. We've seen some of them this patch, right? Like in this review. So for me, it's just A maximum. If you manage to drop it while leveling or something, you could use it like at level 50 or whatever, 50, 60. But I'm never using this endgame personally. I don't think what they offer is strong enough. And again, like if you want to go block, just use the good block stuff, right? I don't think it's that great.
So for this one, I put it in S endgame because I played around with it. I didn't do a build guide on it, but you can get to 100% block chance, and the nice thing about it is it's 100% block chance against everything. So you don't have to worry about having to try and stay nearby, or in this case, the meteorites being casted at you from a distance that absolutely annihilate you. You're guaranteed to block it and get that damage reduction. So it is cool that you can build around not having to be nearby and still hit 100% block chance pretty easily.
But what are you gonna do with 200 block effectiveness? Which is what the shield has. Shield?
Well, it comes with another 500 on it, or up to.
Yeah, but I mean.
But you can build into some block effectiveness, the
blessing and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't know.
You can get enough for an extra, 30 to 40% damage reduction. Which, as long as you beat 35%, it's better than the 100% glancing blow. But it's if you don't get much higher than that, maybe it's not worth 2 slots for that, where you could have just did the shield and still had 100% glancing blow.
You can play with it. I don't think it's worth it. But I guess it offers that unique thing, right? Being able to have 100% block without the range constriction. So if we're going by that criteria, maybe you can play with it. But again, I would never do it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that wraps it up for all the brand new uniques and set items that we got in patch 8.3. That'll wrap up this tier list. We'll have links to the tier list for all the other uniques that are currently in the game, but were before this patch. None of them had any changes made to them, so they're all going to sit in basically the same spot. And that'll be it from us. Thank you, Lizard, for joining us, giving your opinion on them, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.